Howdy partners, it's your old buddy the Reddit writer. Welcome back to the Reddit Ranch. Come in and sit a spell and listen to the mighty fine tales I gotta tell. Let's get right into it with our first story. It's from a little lady who has a fiancé that sorta has a pretty dangerous sense of humor. Well, we all know how funny danger is.
AITA for giving my fiancé a taste of his own medicine? I'm 29, and I've been in a relationship with my fiancé for 7 years. We get along great, we care about each other, and we truly love each other. There is one thing about him though, that angered me immensely. He has this weird quirk where he considers trying to trip someone the funniest of pranks, and he often does that to me. He's done that numerous times, and I have asked him to stop doing that because it's dangerous. There's been 1 or 2 times where he intentionally tried to trip me right before the stairs, and I saw my life flashing before my eyes. I talked with him, pleaded with him, set boundaries, shouted, I tried everything. He doesn't do it that often anymore, but still does sometimes. I, on the other hand, am a person that is quite clumsy. I trip or drop stuff often. Even recently I managed to sprain my wrist by tripping on an almost non-moving bike, so it really doesn't take much for me to trip or fall or accidentally hurt myself. His top comedy prank happened today as well. We were enjoying our time, coming home from language classes, ordered some food and coffee to go. I was very happy and excited to be going home and having the whole day in front of me and not many chores to do that day. We were talking and laughing, and he suddenly put his foot in between my feet. I lost my balance and tripped, but I didn't fall. I started shouting at him, told him that I'm holding our food, and I could have dropped it. He started laughing and I was honestly fuming. After a few minutes he saw that I am extremely annoyed, and he apologized, saying that he considers it extremely funny and that he can't help it that he has intrusive thoughts, and they sometimes win. So I let my intrusive thoughts win as well. I took his cup of coffee and dropped it on the pavement. I didn't find it funny at all. I just wanted to make a statement that what one might consider funny might not be a good joke in the eyes of another. I'm not gonna lie, I was still angry of course, so I started telling him the same thing over and over again until he gets the point. On top of that, I hated the idea that we were in public and random people looking at us could consider it abuse from either of sides. A few minutes later, we reached home, and he got very emotional. He cried a little bit and said that he really liked the coffee, and he knows that I did that only to make him upset and uncomfortable. I would lie if I said I didn't, but at that time I really didn't see other options anymore to make him consider my boundaries. AITA?
Wait a second ma'am, he reckons that trying to trip y'all at the top of the stairs is funny? Really? To me, it sounds more like he's trying to unalive you for an insurance policy or something. You ain't a sidewinder. As for y'all's fiancé, not only is his jokes not funny, they're downright dangerous. And I reckon he'll continue to pull his stupid pranks until something really bad happens. As for his intrusive thoughts, well, maybe he should seek out professional help to help him control those thoughts. Or, an even better idea would be if he suddenly found himself single. Then we could see what his intrusive thoughts think about that. Y'all want to know something partners? I never heard of attempting to unalive someone as being a quirk before, but what y'all think? What do you think she should do? Let me know. Our next one is by a cowpoke who threw his girlfriend and her son out of his house because she had her ex over at his house when he wasn't there.
AITA for kicking out my girlfriend and her son after she invited her ex into our home? Me, 35, and my GF, Sarah, 35, have been together for 4 years. She has a son, Nathan, 9, with her ex Mark, 36. Sarah has full custody of Nathan with her ex having scheduled visitations one weekend of every month. Sarah and Nathan moved in with me a little over a year and a half ago, and in my perspective, it was a little rocky at first. I've always been pretty protective of my space, so making room for 2 other people was difficult for me. When Sarah moved in with me, we agreed that the visitations for Mark would be held in our apartment as long as I'm home. The main reason I wanted this is because I don't know Mark that well, and I don't want him wandering around our apartment without me there. When we proposed this idea to Mark, he was fine with it. Now moving on to the real issue. 3 weeks ago marked 4 months since Mark's last visit, so I had asked Sarah when he was planning on visiting Nathan. My GF replied by shrugging her shoulders and telling me she'd ask. She never followed up with it. So a few days ago, I asked when Mark's next visit was, and Sarah said she'd tell me when she knew. Nathan was in the living room but had apparently overheard us and shouted something along the lines of "Dad was here last weekend, remember?" Sarah's face immediately dropped, and when I asked what Nathan meant, she wouldn't give me a direct answer. Eventually she ended up telling me that for the past 2 visits, Mark had been to our apartment when I was working. When I accused her of going back on our agreement, she kept telling me this was her home too and she could invite whoever she wanted, and that it was fine because she was here and watching. I told her that was beside the point, and she violated my trust. It blew up into a huge argument which ended in me telling her to get out of my apartment. She packed up and left with Nathan. Last I heard she was staying with her parents. I've gotten several messages from both Sarah and her parents calling me an AH for kicking Sarah and Nathan out of their home for something so small. She's even been blasting me on Instagram and Facebook about how horrible I am to do this to her. It's got me thinking I might be the AH, but I'm not entirely sure yet. AITA?
Well son, I reckon everyone is in the wrong here. Well, maybe not Nathan. I mean, if your girlfriend had to modify the visitation agreement, she should have discussed it with you first, of course. And as for you, well, maybe throwing her and her son out was a mite bit of an overreaction. Even when it comes to the original agreement, you were acting like without you there, Sarah would allow her ex to wander throughout your apartment. It really doesn't sound like y'all felt that you could completely trust her that much. Well partners, what do y'all think? Do you think he was in the right to kick them out? Or do you think it was a bit of an overreaction? Tell me what your thoughts are down below. Next, we have one that was posted by a young lady who has a sister that tries to force her to babysit her younging.
AITA for making up a date to not babysit my nephew. I denied my sister the option to take care of my nephew today. For context, my sister wanted me to take care of my nephew so she could go with my mum shopping. I don't have the best relationship with none of them due to fights in the past where my parents always wanted to benefit my sister just because she's a single mom. She's lazy, manipulative, she feels entitled to get anything she wants just because she has a kid. Yesterday she got a membership from a shop, the kind you have to pay to get them, and today while I was working I noticed that she got it, so I asked her if she could come with me to the store to get something I really want to buy. She said no, as the membership is only hers and in case I need one, I will have to pay for my own membership. It is not the first time that she does that kind of thing. If she ever gets anything she would not share, however whatever you have to share it with her cause she always needs something from you. I got out of work and laid on my bed while watching TV. I had nothing planned for today except chilling in my room. When I noticed that she was getting ready to go out, however my nephew was still in PJs. So I asked, "Are you going out?" When she mentioned that she and my mother were just about to go out shopping, I said, "Were you taking your kid or planning on leaving him alone?" She looked at me and said, "Well, you are not going anywhere so he will stay with you." That moment I decided to tell her I was going out with one of my friends and I was not able to take care of her kid. With a horrible attitude she started to get my nephew ready, she was screaming at him, and she was just moody. I really don't have anything to do. I'm still laying in my bed while they went out, not without my mom glaring at me like I have done something bad. Please take in mind that this has happened several times. They go shopping or to have fun and they will just leave my nephew for me to take care of him. I don't really have an issue most of the time, but I think that if you are trying to get a favor from someone else then the least you can do is be nice when they ask for something. The membership thing is just one example of the many times she has refused to do something for me while I always take care of her son. Am I being selfish and mean?
No ma'am, you ain't a sidewinder. Your sister is a bit of an entitled twit, isn't she? Her younging ain't your problem, and it is just so wrong on so many levels to just assume that you would be okay to watch him, for free I might add, without even showing you a little bit of consideration, you know, like maybe asking you if it would be okay. Well, I guess it can be rough to have a relative that thinks that just because she has a younging, that she is entitled to have the world handed to her on a silver platter. But what do y'all think, partners? Have you ever known someone like the sister in the story? Please, let me know in the comments. Our last tale involves a little filly who has an ex that seems to have enough disposable income to spend on remodeling his house, but not enough to spend on child support. Well now, I plumb reckon that he has messed up priorities.
AITA For asking my ex to stop spending his money on his wife and start spending it on his kids. I have been divorced from my ex-husband for 6 years now, and have full custody on my 2 boys, 9 and 6-year-olds. I wouldn't say the divorce ended on good terms, but I'd say that we managed to keep it civil in front of our boys. After the divorce, ex-husband moved into a new neighborhood better than the one we were in, then found us a house in a nearby family-friendly neighborhood. It was more expensive than our original rent, to be honest, but the arrangement was that I'll pay half and he'll pay half. After he got married, he told me that paying his share most months would be difficult, which turned to all months, which turned to me paying the rent all on my own. This put a lot of stress on money for me, and I barely save any money during the month, if at all. Ex got married a couple years ago, and since then he has been also cutting the money he sends to the boys by half. I talked with him many times that if he is not planning to send the same amount that he usually does, to just let me know so I can make arrangements and sort my financials accordingly. However, lately he has been promising my sons a new room for each boy, then going back on his words, telling them that your mom doesn't think it's a proper time to get the room now. Or promising them a trip during their summer break, only to tell them your mom didn't approve. When I confronted him about it, he told me that he is embarrassed to tell them that he doesn't have the money to do so because, for the 3rd time this year, his wife wants to redecorate their house. All this, plus my boys treating me differently or not being as happy to be around me as usual, made me snap on him the last time he called me, telling him that if he didn't spend all his money on his wife, he'll know how to pay for his kids. This made him tell me that his household financials is not my business, which is true, and that I'm ungrateful for the money he sends and selfish to ask for more. As if that money is spent on myself and not his boys. I could care less about his spending habits, but I just want him to pull the weight he promised from the beginning and stop giving false promises to the boys, then blame it on me. AITA
No ma'am, you ain't a sidewinder. Your ex is a deadbeat, and to call your ex a sidewinder is an insult to sidewinders everywhere. Not only is this sorry excuse for a man a deadbeat, but he gaslights you to your sons, making every one of his broken promises y'all's fault. If I was you, I'd tell y'all's youngings the truth, maybe not about the child support thing, but definitely about how his broken promises ain't y'all's fault. Now, you mentioned that you and your ex have agreements on what he is supposed to pay. I'm assuming this was done through the courts, right? If so, go back to court, because it sounds like not only would you be entitled to the amount that was agreed to, but the arrears as well. Now, there were a lot of comments that agreed with me in telling her to go to court. She said that she was just worried about taking him to court and paying money for a lawyer only for him to pull his connections and get full custody just to be petty. To this, a Redditor named Napoleon the Doctor replied, "A parent who can't be bothered to pay child support, while promising all sorts of stuff, will not want to be a full-time parent. Especially with a new wife." Yeah, I sorta got to agree with Napoleon the Doctor. I doubt she has to worry about losing custody, but what do y'all reckon? What would you do if you were her? Please, let me know down below. Well, I plumb reckon that's all the time we got today, but if y'all like this here video, then please, hit like and subscribe. It'll really make this old cowpoke smile. And if y'all got anything to say, then feel free to tell me what's on your mind down in the comments. Until y'all come back to the Reddit Ranch. Adios.